Hey everyone, and welcome to another video from the Parrot Bros. Today we're going to be doing a video on how to jack up your TT. So maybe you want to know how to get all four wheels off the ground the best way. I'm just going to run through quickly how I do it and what I use. Obviously if you've got something different, I'm sure we'll think of a way of making it work. So let's get stuck into it. Okay, so I'm going to start with the front using a trolley jack on the inner chassis rail, and I'll show you where that is in a minute. Let me just get it up high enough. Unfortunately I'm limited on space, but I'm sure most people are. Now before we get off the ground, what I usually like to do is get a wheel chock and put it under a wheel that's not likely to lift the ground, which will be the other side behind this wheel. So all I'm going to do is go around the other side and put it under the wheel like that, away from the body, but just enough because these are massive. I'm going to put it just enough so that it will stop the car from rolling away should the handbrake fail or the caliper doesn't work on that side or I haven't got it in gear. Always recommend, if you're parking it and going to be jacking it up, I always put it in gear and put the handbrake on, and of course using my wheel chock. If I'm just going to be lifting the front, I'll put a wheel chock under each side on the rear, but I'm taking it all the way up today, so I'm just going to put one on the back rear corner just while I lift the front, and we'll do that now. Okay, so now we've got the wheel chock on, we'll get this up to a point in which we can get a stand on it. Depending on what you're doing is dependent on how high you want to go. I'll go a reasonable height. So we'll get our axle stand. Just need a little bit more. There we go. Now, what you want to do is, if you know your jack well, you'll know just to do it gently, just enough, so as it starts to reduce, there you go, just quickly check you've got it both sides of the sill, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. Right, so we'll remove our trolley jack. Now what you'll notice is I've got what I call is a lifting puck, but basically it's a hard rubber piece which is quite deep, and I use it, it's very firm, and I use it on top of there rather than that little thin pad that usually comes with. And what this does is it just sort of stops it from getting damaged underneath, and ideally it's also good if you can't lift from the other point, you can lift on the sill there and it will put the load on the body as well as on the sill rather than just bending the sill. Okay, so like I said earlier, we're going to be trying to put it on the sill because that is the strongest part, not the sill, sorry, the chassis rail. So I'm just talking about the sill. Try and go quite far back where possible. I'll try and do it so you can see on the camera. But what you'll see there is, just make sure it goes on nice and straight. There we go. We'll do a bit of a close-up when it's up in the air. And what you want to try and do is get it level with the other side. So I know I've got one clip on my axle stand. And whilst you're doing this, keep an eye on your axle stand the other side. Make sure that it's staying straight, it's not moving, it's not lifting, because obviously that will cause you more issues if it falls off. Right, so you get your axle stand in roughly the same position. We need to go up a tiny bit more to get it the same. Right, there we go. So it's one click, and again with the jack handle, just gently release it. Some do come flying down, so you have to be a bit careful, and just watch it down onto the stand. Okay, and there we have it. So that is the front lifted up. Okay, let's get this removed. Okay, so if you're working on the front, that is ideally all you need to do. And we'll get a close-up for you. So there's the chassis, nice strong integral part of the car. It runs for about 2 feet. Try and use it somewhere in the middle and you'll get a nice lift. Just try and make sure that it's centered let's see if I can get underneath to show you. Try and get your stand centered so it doesn't likely to tip over or slip off or anything like that. And that is jacking up the front of your car. Now what I usually do is, if you're jacking up just the front, I normally just leave the trolley jack against there loose, just in case you ever need to quickly get one of the stands out or anything. Nothing, just take the weight off it and put the weight on the stand. Okay, let's move on to jacking up the back. Okay, so providing you can get the jack under there, I normally jack on the central point of the rear subframe underneath the diff. Obviously this only applies to the quattros, but you will have an axle on the two-wheel drive, so similar sort of prospect. So yeah, centralised middle of the lower diff housing on the subframe, and all we do is just a nice slow lift. I've got stands either side ready to go, and what I'll do is I'll show you once we've got this up in the air where to put them. I've still got the rubber wheel chock under these wheels, even though the front's jacked up, and as you're jacking up, just keep an eye on the front, nice and slow, there's no race, and you just make sure that you're keeping an eye on the front ones because you don't want them to tip as the weight transfers. Now the wheels are already off the ground, so it is just a case of getting it to a point where it's again nice and level. That way it just keeps everything nice and stable. That is about level. So what I'll do is we'll go and get our stands in position. So I'll just turn the camera so you can see where I'm going to be putting it. And there's a few options. I use the round circular sort of mounting points, and they're used on a 4-poster lift. But obviously if you've got the weight already lifted, you're not lifting the weight with it, you are simply holding it, and that's no different than if it was on a ramp. So I'll just throw them underneath and then I'll show you what I'm on about. Again, let this off. What I'll do is I'm probably going to leave the jack under because it's not going to be in my way for what I'm doing, but just slowly come down onto the stands. Like I said, there's no rush with the jack to get it down. You've got to be careful because my one likes to come off quite fast. There we go. So just watch it onto the stands. I've got them centralised. Then give it a quick check right before you take the jack away. Yeah, nice and in the centre. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so there you have it. That is a full lift. Let's quickly show you what I'm on about. So there's the mounting point. There is other options, but to be honest, that's the one I prefer. You could put a stand under on the rear diff, but you'll never quite get it central. You could put it on the arm, but that does move, or on the sill, but as you can see, someone's already done that wrong before. Ignore the rust. And yeah, that is it. Ready to go now, so you can go higher if you want. I've just got it up just enough so it's off the floor, and that's plenty of space for me to get underneath and do what I've got to do. Okay, so now you've got your finished doing what you're doing, and you want to bring your car back down again. What we'll do is exactly the same thing we did earlier in reverse. So again, get under the rear subframe, diff housing right in the middle, make sure you get in nice and central, and then all you want to do is take the weight off the stands just enough that you can pull them out. I've got my wheel chocks there ready. So remove our stands, take them away from the car, get the wheel chock nearby, the handbrake's on. And then lower down slowly. We've got our wheel chocks there, the handbrake's on, it's in gear, nice and slow. Just see it down. Keep an eye on the front stands while you're doing it. And then once you've touched down, you can let it off. Pull the jack away. Okay, so now you're on the side. You've got the back down. You've got it on wheel chocks. Get the trolley jack underneath, and you want to get it jacked up in the same place you had it jacked up last time, which is at the back of the sill, just behind the jack stand. And what you want to do is, just as you're doing it, keep an eye on both. Make sure that other one on the other side doesn't slip. And again, you just want to get it high enough that this one can be got out. And you want to lower it gently whilst watching the other side. Right, there we go. And we'll do the same the other side, and then we are done. When doing this, even if you've got wheel chocks, always make sure your handbrake's on, because you don't want a gust of wind and it to roll away. Plus, it's your safety. At the end of the day, you don't want to get hurt. A car can be replaced, the person can't, and I've seen many sketchy jacking that people have done in the past with scissor jacks and no stands and all that good stuff. So again, keep an eye on the stand, just enough to get it off the stand. Your stand's out, it's in gear, the handbrake's on, I've got my wheel chocks there ready. Try and get a better trolley jack than I've got, because it's a bit stiff at times. And there we go. That is it, done. Just be aware that there's quite a lot of load on the handbrake, so when you do come to take the car away and you take the handbrake off, it will drop significantly. Guys, hope you found that helpful. That is how to jack up a TT.